Admit it. You've sat through enough zombie movies and apocalyptic television shows to think you have a solid plan for the end of the world. But that playbook is based on an illusion. It is a modern version of Plato's cave. We have spent years watching hyper-dramatized shadows projected on a screen, and we've mistaken them for reality. Take the classic opening shot of the genre. Our hero wakes up from a coma or a bunker and wanders down an eerie, perfectly silent city street. If the grid went down tomorrow, treating that cinematic script as an instruction manual would not make you a hero. It would get you killed almost immediately. This document outlines the first 24 hours of a systemic breakdown. It shows collapse is a cascading sequence of failures. In the first 6 hours, lights and cell towers fail. People don't riot. They suffer shock, assuming the outage is temporary. Faster, more urgently. By the time the severity of the situation sets in, you are hit with a deafening lull of sound, thousands of car alarms blaring simultaneously, absolute traffic gridlock, and sheer environmental chaos. The immediate threat on day one isn't encountering infected monsters. Your biggest risk is being physically trapped or crushed by the sheer volume of a panicking population trying to evacuate at the exact same time. Once that initial chaos settles, instinct tells you to find supplies. The cinematic version of this involves a survivor casually strolling into a local grocery store weeks later to load up a backpack. That ignores how modern logistics actually operate. Retail locations run on just-in-time supply chains, holding almost zero reserve inventory in the back room. The second a major disruption hits, the psychological trigger of panic buying takes over. Those shelves are stripped bare within hours of the first warning. Without incoming deliveries, these former hubs of commerce turn into arenas of extreme, localized scarcity. They become highly violent battlegrounds for whatever scraps were dropped in the aisles. Treating a post-collapse resupply like a routine shopping trip is a fatal error, built on a complete misunderstanding of our fragile infrastructure. The next mistake usually happens on a rooftop. Survivors build a massive signal fire or rig up a spotlight, hoping to flag down a rescue helicopter. This field report on noise and light discipline explains the real-world physics at play here. In a completely grid-down environment, the absence of the urban hum drastically amplifies how far a signal carries. At night, a temperature inversion occurs. Cooler air settles near the ground, under a warm air lid. Acoustic waves hit that lid and bend back toward Earth. Under these conditions, a fire's crackle or shouted conversation broadcasts your exact location for miles around. Often, all that noise draws attention, or the survivors pick up a scratchy radio broadcast promising a secure, military-run safe zone. In a true zero-rule environment, a heavily armed faction dictating rules and offering an isolated utopia is rarely organizing a charity rescue. When one group controls the food and holds all the weapons, they are executing a strategy of subjugation. Actively seeking rescue by breaking concealment misreads the entire threat board. It willfully trades your greatest defensive asset, your invisibility, for a cage. This brings us to the darkest lie the shadows taught us, the certainty that without laws, humans instantly devolve into savage, looting hordes, leaving you with no choice but to adopt a paranoid lone wolf survival strategy. This report analyzing actual disaster sociology proves the opposite. The narrative of a barbaric collapse is fiction. Psychologists call it catastrophe compassion. Empirical data shows that after a massive crisis, crime rates decrease, while unconditional altruism and cooperation spike. When faced with total destruction, strangers consistently rely on one another, forming spontaneous networks to pull their neighbors out of the rubble. When survival groups actually fail, it is almost never due to inherent human selfishness. They collapse from a lack of social capital, an obsession with isolationism, and rigid authoritarian leadership. The tragic irony of the apocalypse is that those who hoard resources and isolate themselves are mathematically the first to fail. True survival requires stepping out of the cave, acknowledging the old rules are gone, and choosing the ultimate risk, trusting your